But yeah, the original had a reference to writing letters, which nobody does anymore, so I just switched it out to email.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's a fair point. Bring it down just a smidge. Want to be about there. We're on 1 and 2. I threw out extra waters just because I don't know about you guys, but I've been drinking tons of water. We are on Facebook.
Do you have the Nina Peligra one in there? That's actually the best one.
Probably, but I can't get to it right now.
No worries. I would ask you to replace
where mics are hot.
Oh.
Mike Bankhead starts off hour number 3 of your Tuesday afternoon alternative with his brand new song, Hold the Wick. He's done a whole bunch of remixes and lots of interesting interpretations of that song. And wouldn't it be great if Mike were here to talk about all that?
Would it be?
You are fortunate, dear listener, because Mike Bankhead is here in the studio, accompanied by his able general, Misty Bankhead. Misty, Mike, thank you guys for coming in today.
Thanks for inviting us in on this beautiful Midwestern almost spring day.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It's great.
It's a pleasure.
Well, it's always nice to see you guys. It's so interesting to me. Like, I wonder, I go out to a show, am I going to see anybody I know? And then I see you guys, I'm like, okay, now I feel good.
We like to go to shows.
And you go to more than a few.
Try to support the talented folks in our town.
If folks don't know, Mike Bankhead is a terrific Dayton-based musician. He's released a couple of records. I have played, 3-4 songs off that first record. Carry On in particular was a personal favorite of mine.
Which I thank you for.
And you've also had some interesting compilations. You've worked with Brandon Berry of the Paint Splats. You've got some singles and things that you've worked on. Some even including like Wapakoneta, this really great historical reference.
Yeah, in fact, that was the last time I was in here. That's what we were talking about. It was last July when I dropped.
Wow.
July 20th to be specific.
Well, and in part because
that's the day that Neil Armstrong first walked on the moon.
Yeah.
He was from Wapakoneta.
So okay, Hold the Wick. Let's start with just the song itself before we get to the remixes. Tell me about Hold the Wick.
It's a punchy little 2-minute pop rock song. You can hear some Pixies influence in there. You probably can't hear it, but there's some Bob Pollard influence in there because it's, brief. Mm-hmm. And from the second I went in the studio to record that song, I knew that I wanted to do something interesting and collaborative. I mean, I'm a bass player, but I write guitar rock, so I have to be collaborative anyway. And I wanted to do something more and involve more people. So once Patrick and I recorded it, and then Patrick mixed it beautifully, I reached out to some other musicians, talented artists of different styles, and asked if they'd be willing to have a go at taking all of the little pieces of the song that we had put together and completely rearranging them in any way they wanted to build something new. And I got great participation, and the result is Hold the Wick comes to you with 7 remixes that are all in different genres. So you're of an age where, like me, you remember the CD singles from the 90s, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it was a single, but you'd go buy the disc and there'd be a whole bunch of other songs on it. Well, that's the listening experience I'm trying to replicate here. So it's a single, but there's 8 different versions of the same song.
Right. So I'm curious, how did the song come about? Did you work on the music first, or did you work on the lyrics?
This is the main hook. I didn't even realize that happened. The main hook I had laying around for a few months, I think, by the time I sat down and wrote the song. But it started off with just Hold the Wick and the beat in my head, which is not the way I typically write. But then after that, it was the music, and then the music was written around that hook, and then after that, the rest of the lyrics.
So you typically work from music first?
99% of the time.
Well, and I'm curious, Misty, if you then are exposed to some of that music, does Mike bounce ideas off you?
He waits actually until it's ready for other people to hear first. So he knows I'm going to say I like it regardless. So I don't get the first look like you would think.
And I'm curious then, so you get an early look, but you don't get like the earliest.
Not necessarily, right.
Well, and I want to go ahead and jump to one of the remixes because one of the microphones is acting up here in the studio. So is it okay if I play the Rich Reuter remix? And so Mike, and I should probably ask you to share microphones with Misty there. What can you tell me about the Rich Reuter remix?
You know Rich's skill set. He's a fantastic guitarist, great songwriter. I mean, you've been playing stuff off of his new EP on the radio, I'm sure. And I thought I'd get something like jazzy, but not like maybe Cajun New Orleans style, something that would have fit at home on the Captain album. And what I got was this smooth jazz fusion thing. And Rich discarded the entire track except for my voice and rebuilt the entire thing from scratch in a completely different way than I expected, and that is exactly what I was looking for from this project. So this is me singing, but the song doesn't sound anything remotely like something I would write.
Yeah, oh wonderful. This is Mike Bankhead with one of the seven, wow, 7 remixes of Hold the Wick done by our very own Rich Reuter. I think I'm going to scream at this equipment. I have no idea.
The video that Brandon did for this is brilliant.
It's basically acting like it's dead. So today has not been a fun day with equipment. So we're going to put you on this, friend.
No worries.
And move this guy out of the way.
I'm going to be the this one over here.
Did you mind jumping to 3?
I don't know.
Thank you, Misty.
When I get home, I'll send you the video that Brandon did for this. It's not going to be out for, it'll be several weeks before it's out, but I think you'll like it.
We're good on here. Still good over here.
Oh, it's way too people.
Yeah, because I was pushing the button over here to see if that would reset it, but it's just all kinds of weird. Because it was literally like you trailed off while you were talking.
Oh.
Because I was looking at Misty I was making that eye contact like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
So, could I have you replace the THOEM one with the Nina Paliber one? If
Yeah.
The THOEM mix is just six minutes of ambient noise with no other words. Which, while it is interesting, I don't think that's like radio friendly.
Oh, it's not?
It's 6 minutes of just like electronic ambient drone.
We can, that's easy in our...
Which, I mean,
Just kind of sounds like
It
a
works for
motorcycle
the-
revving.
Now, of
I mean, it
course,
worked-
if
it
it had
worked.
lots of characters in it, the computer has been a nightmare today. Let's see, so... Boop, boop.
also I can
So
tell,
it could very well be that it just didn't come through.
and also I can tell Nina that her song's gonna play on the radio and she should tune to hear it.
5. Yeah, so what is it, Nina?
Nina Paliber remix.
Can you spell the
P-E-L-L-I-G-R-A.
I-G-R-A? This'll answer the question. Aha! Why it's not showing it to me is... Oh, okay, I see, I get it now. The computer said too many characters. Uh-oh. Well, it's gonna play another one. Cool. Hold the Wick. What do I call it? The remixes. I swear by all that is holy, I want to smash these machines. But what good would that serve?
I
So
mean,
then you'd have nothing to work on.
you would feel really good right after you're done.
for like what, like 30 seconds?
It'd give you a
Right,
good
for
rush.
30 seconds.
And then remorse.
And then like, what have I done? Yeah, there it is. Now it's in there. Okay. And that's the only one we were missing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
But you can take out the THOEM one.
And, oh, does that have a bad word?
No, it's just 6 minutes of ambient drone noise.
Okay. Okay.
People will be confused.
They want to understand what it has to do with
Right. I mean, I get it.
We should still talk about it.
We should.
And then
And tell people to go find it.
So
There you go.
this one,
yeah, it's excellent.
right, because it is out everywhere today. This one is a kid from Enschede, Netherlands.
Why do I know that name?
I don't know.
Enschede.
I mean, it was probably shelled by the Nazis, but most of the Netherlands was shelled by the
We
Nazis.
have a number of listeners of the show who are actually in Malmo.
Oh, really?
Okay.
But I don't think that's anywhere near there.
No,
No.
I've actually been to.
That's like saying this and this are
I've
right
been
next to each
to.
other.
I've been to a neighboring city of Malmo's
Yeah.
for work once. Malmo's the next big town over.
Okay. But yeah, so I have no idea why that's.
I mean, it's probably Malmo to Enschede is probably about as far as here to St. Louis.
Okay.
You know, Europe's not huge. It's actually maybe not even that far.
Isn't that funny? I know when I was over in England, I was surprised at how quick you could get places.
No, it's a very
Like,
small
oh,
town.
I want to go out to like I want to go to a seaside village, and
There you
I
are.
bet this will take me all day. And like, no, you hop a train for a couple hours, and then you're there.
It's a very small island.
And trains, like,
That love the
And
transportation.
trains.
Oh, I missed the transportation system. You could get anywhere you needed to go. It was delightful.
the demise of the United States. Let's build automobiles and roads instead of trains.
And I'm with Robin Hitchcock. We need trains.
We do. I'm with you. And I'm in the airplane industry, and I think we should use trains.
We'll have to unpack that later.
Well,
So there we go. We have a couple of remixes of Mike Bankhead's terrific song, Hold the Wick. And we've got more coming up. We think we have resolved some of our technical issues with the microphone. We have Mike Bankhead and Misty Bankhead here in the studio. Mike is a terrific Dayton musician. If you don't know his first album, Echo in the Crevices, I highly recommend it. If you don't know Wappa Canetta, I highly recommend it. If you don't know Paint the Moon, the split with Brandon Berry of the Paint Splats, here we go. I highly recommend it. There's also his more recent full length. That would be your second full length, right?
Yeah, Anxious Inventions and Fictions, which was out in September 2020.
Yeah.
Very proud of that one, by the way.
And
Really good
that
work.
one, to me, right? I usually shorthand it like A and I or something like that.
I guess AI and F would be the official abbreviation.
AIF? Yeah, okay. Now I'm just being silly. But it seemed to me, as you've progressed with the albums, you've spent a lot of energy on songcraft, right? I think you've always paid a great deal of attention to the lyrics that you write.
Always.
But the songcraft seems to be evolving, right? And maybe that's true of every artist, and I'm making a mountain out of the proverbial molehill.
I think I write in a more focused manner than I used to. And I feel that everything that you release as an artist should be as good or better than the last thing you released. And if it's not, then you shouldn't bother releasing it. Your mileage might vary. Other artists. So for me, if I'm gonna make a full-length album or an EP even, I want it to show some progress and maybe even do something a little different, which is a tease for the future. But
Sorry, I enjoyed that.
yeah.
And then I paused to see if you would add any more
Well,
context.
if there'll be more context when we get to the remix done by the gentleman I'm recording that next EP with. So
Okay, fair point.
that last one, by the way, which we were talking about off air, but your listeners didn't know, that was by a gentleman named Kes Matthijs, which is as close as I can get to pronouncing his last name because it's Dutch. And he's based out of Enschede, Netherlands, and he's like 20 and very talented musician, producer, classically trained, but like a lot of young people likes to make beats on a computer, but he's going to music school, trying to learn theory. One of those he's like trying to work on his craft, and I thought that he'd have an interesting approach to the song, and his approach was, well, let's turn it into a hip hop beat. And I dig it. So, yeah.
How did you connect with him?
Twitter. While it is an evil place sometimes it is useful. So his artist name is No Money Savant, which he spells no space dollar spine space savant. And I had him on my podcast recently, and one of the first questions I asked him was, hey, you're from the Netherlands, why isn't it no euro sign savant? Dollars are not your currency. And because he's a friendly kid, he said, he didn't say because Americans wouldn't know what that means. He said, well, I'm trying to reach the American market, and I thought that the name would be more appealing that way.
Smart.
But that's what he meant.
Well, and it makes sense, right? If you're trying to connect to an American audience, you probably have to make certain decisions.
Yep, and that was one he consciously made. Another one he consciously makes is he raps and sings in English, which is not his first language. In fact, he makes so much music in English that he said it is weird for him to write in his own language now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he doesn't even like writing lyrics in Dutch. He said it's weird.
Huh. So that, he must be writing a lot then.
Yeah. So he does not have a website yet, but you can search for No Money Savant on all the streaming services and find him on Twitter. And if you find my podcast, there's an episode where I talk to him, and you get to hear him talk about his craft and how he approaches it.
Well, I just have to ask, Mike, a lot of your music, and you've done some really different things, right? You've done indie or alternative, Dayton indie, whatever you want to call it. But you've also done like a Spanish song.
Two. One upbeat, one downbeat.
Okay, 2 Spanish songs.
Got more on the way, just haven't recorded them yet.
You've done kind of like a ballad that was of historical note, right? Talking about Wapakoneta and of course its most famous son.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, remixes. What in that evolution led you to remixes?
In genres of music that people much younger than me frequent, it's kind of a hot, popular thing. And in some dance music and in some hip-hop, remixes actually get more plays than the original song. And I thought, well, first of all, this is a skill set I do not have. I am not an engineer, and I tried to do a remix once. I actually entered a remix contest, and same thing, I got the stems, I got the pieces of the song, and I was going to try to build something new. And I built something new, but it was terrible. You do not need to hear this, people. You do not need to hear what the result was. It's a skill set.
Yeah.
To take the pieces and do something different with them. And I wanted to explore, what would this song that I wrote be like if it was imagined in a different way, right? Because usually I write on piano, which is genreless. You know, I'm primarily a bass player, but you write a song on an acoustic guitar or on a piano, you could take it any direction, depending on the instrumentation you use, the tempo you want to play it at, the vocal approach. And I thought that this song was simple enough and there's room in it to express different things. And it gave me a chance to work with a few people who, most of these people I already knew. Actually, all of them I already knew except for the Dutch gentleman who I met recently over the internet. But it was a chance to work with other people and, yeah, collaborate. Life's more fun when you work with others, right?
Oh, absolutely. It seems to me like you are purposefully pushing the envelope, right? Like trying to stretch or build your skill set.
That is 100% true. We were talking about this also off air. One of the challenges about being an independent musician is there's so much music released. How do you get anyone to actually listen? Well, first of all, you have to make decent art, and most of us who are independent musicians think we're making good enough art, or we wouldn't bother trying to share it with someone else, right? I mean, personally, if I write a song and I think it's not good enough for anyone else to hear, no one else is going to hear it. Got plenty of those laying around.
I would like to hear some of those, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah,
You were saying, good sir.
So I try to think of ways to be a little different, to embrace the spirit of collaboration maybe more than generally done. And in the rock genre, you don't really hear about a lot of remixing going on. I say that very generally because there's a band I happen to dig from Chicago that put out a record and then had a few people do remixes and put out a second record.
Yeah.
And I was already in progress with this project when I found out about it, but that just cemented in my head, okay, I'm not crazy. There are other people that have had this idea in a genre closer to what I do. Now this band's punkier than me, but I don't know that anyone around Dayton has done that before.
Oh, doing the remixes?
Yeah, and if they
Yeah.
have, then point me to them because I'd like to talk to that person and
Yeah.
come up with more unique things. But I figured, who else is doing this? And I miss CD singles, let's be honest. I like CDs. I like music that comes out on Tuesday, as you know. The reason I
God
dropped this
bless
to
you,
streaming,
Mike Bankhead.
it's the reason I dropped this to streaming on Tuesday. And I used to buy CD singles. I still have some, and I wanted to replicate that listening experience without having to go to the studio and record 6 other songs myself. So this was a way to do it,
Yeah.
and kind of share the workload with some other people who are just really talented in different ways. Like I can't play guitar like Rich.
Yeah.
I can't arrange like Rich. Rich's knowledge of music theory is a lot deeper than mine. So it's interesting to take pieces of something that I built and hand it to Rich and say, do something with it. I don't care what you do, just make it cool, right? And make it sound like something that you would make. And that's essentially what I'd let everyone do. Make it sound good and make it sound like something that you would make. And it was successful. I like, everything I got's different. We're not gonna play the last of the 8 mixes. The last one is, the artist is an electronic artist. And it's basically 6 minutes of ambient droning. There's more to it than that. There's a mood change in it. And I talked to him, and I thought that he was trying to tell a story with the remix. And I asked, and I guessed more or less correctly the story he was trying to tell. Like I said, this is what I feel when this part comes up. He's like, that's what I was going for. But he apparently fixated on one particular lyric in the song, and it made him feel a certain way. And then he took that part of the song and threw it through 14 synthesizers and chopped it up. And you wouldn't know that unless you're familiar with his genre, or if you are familiar with the way his mind works. And I just kind of partially guessed it. It's not really the most radio-friendly thing because it's basically 6 minutes of buzzing and other sort of noises, but it's fantastically creative, and I think it makes for a good closer to the CD single. But if you listen to all 8, they're all wildly different from each other, but they're all my song.
And did you purposely want wildly different interpretations?
Yes. But, I mean, I didn't know I was gonna... I didn't tell any of the people, make it sound like this. I just gave them all the same pieces. Hey, do a remix. Here are the pieces. Songwriters and artists and musicians, we're all different. So it's going to be impossible for 2 people to do the exact same thing. But really, these are more divergent than I thought they would be. And there, again, Rich is one of the people. There was another person. There are 2 of the people that only listened to the vocal and discarded all the rest and rebuilt the rest from the ground up. And that is something that I was not anticipating because, again, this is a skill set that I do not have. If you give me like drums and guitars, I'm going to go ahead and keep those, thank you very much, because I don't play those things.
Yeah. Misty?
If I may, when he first started talking about his idea for this project, I had the concept he was basically going to make it a compilation of other local bands doing a version of this song. And
Sure.
because there's a wide enough pool here in Dayton, but when it's all said and done, it became this international project with so many different flavors. It just evolved amazingly. I'm very impressed with it.
And that's very cool. I mean, even like 7, 8 covers of the song, right? We've got some great punk bands and some great hard rock and metal bands here in town. There is, of course, a lot of funk and R&B and hip hop, and you've collaborated with hip hop artists in the past as well.
That would be Tino. Tino's awesome.
Oh, seriously, lovely human being, amazing musician. his music is just incredibly catchy. But I think it speaks to your point, Misty, that you could have just done like 7 or 8 covers, right? Give the song to bands and let them reimagine it in their particular genre or feel. But remixing is something totally different. And it became, I think that's a great point too. I thank you, Misty. You now need to ask all the questions. I think that international component is very interesting as well. Now that sounds like that's something that you took head on because you were collaborating specifically with certain kinds of artists. You weren't focused on, say, like only a remixer who's in Ohio or something.
Oh no, I mean, you reach out to your network first, and after Rich, the next person I asked is a Canadian artist who used to live in Toronto but now lives in Vancouver, drove all the way across the country. And it's a gentleman that I met at a music conference a few years ago, and then actually we've hung out at 3 different music conferences. But you build your network, you make acquaintances, you make friends, and his skill set's different than mine, but we talk music, and he writes music that I like, and I apparently write some music that he likes, and I thought that I'd want to see what Liam would do with this. So yeah, one of them is the Canadian gentleman, and then of course we just played the one from the Dutch gentleman.
Well, I was just thinking about how busy musicians are, whether it's self-created workload or actual workload. Was there anyone you reached out to who they were too busy?
Yes, that person will remain nameless.
And I'm not.
I wasn't offended. The answer is, would you like to do this? And if the answer is no, okay,
Well, because I just think of knowing what little glimpse I have into the creative life of musicians. There's not enough hours in the day.
Sometimes no.
So I can easily see where someone who needs to take the time to build a remix just doesn't have that time.
Yep. And depending on how you decide to go about the remix, some of them are pretty complicated. Like the one you have queued up next, which I pretty much badgered you into queuing up next.
As you should.
The very talented lady that did that remix is an a cappella choral arranger by trade. And went to college and has a degree in composition and a cappella music and theory and such. And approached it with that skill set, essentially built choral stuff out of her own voice around pieces of the track. And then, since she has engineering and production skills too, moved around some of the pieces to make it sound kind of anthemic. And then when we were talking about it, when she was going to deliver it, she's like, "Oh yeah, I have the score if you want to see it." So like the way that cool. Nina sees music, because she's highly educated and trained, is that she just sees it on the staff, and she emailed me a PDF of the score that she wrote, all the pieces. So if you wanted to take the thing to an orchestra,
you could.
You could.
Wow.
Now I can't. I want her to see it for posterity. I'm not going to ever play to it because I sight read like a 3-year-old reads English. But I can, but just really slowly and not at all accurately. But I just think it's fascinating to see the way that different musicians' minds process the same tools in completely different ways, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think we should listen to that, but first we have to pay some bills and remind people that they're listening to WUDR Dayton, rockin' the Gem City, music in all directions. Support your local music scene. And if you don't want to take my word for it, because I may not be a trusted narrator. There we go. Like, didn't I hit those buttons? that time may have been me.
This is the way she started.
Yeah, and I realized as I asked that, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble or bring up any sore wounds. Okay. So I tried to be a little more thoughtful with how I phrased the question. Because there could be people who very much wanted to work on a remix but just didn't have the time.
No, it's no worries.
Yeah.
I don't think there's 7 bands in town that would want to cover one of my songs. So the cover